Okay, here we go. I'm gonna title this one Words.
Words.
Subtitle Who do you work for?
Are you afraid of words? Words. Because I was afraid of words, Roxanne.
I may use the title Words again in a later video. Now, this is an oversimplified elementary school version of this, and I'm not going to get really deep into it, just enough to dispel some of the negativity surrounding just words in general. And I'm going to try not to mix in etymology with any of this, which is a completely separate topic, which is going to have to be talked about in a completely separate video. So I'm not trying to teach anyone anything. I'm not even qualified to wave a pen in the direction of either of these topics, but I'm more than qualified to give my own opinion about things, which is what I'm intending to do here. And so right off top, we know words is like a sword. Even mightier, it could be stated. But we all know that. And we know that spelling is a way to cast spells. Strangely enough, that's one of the first things that we must learn to do at such an early age. So, who does it work for, or who do you work for, whether knowingly or unknowingly? This can be seen to work for you or against you, depending on your level of understanding of this whole debacle. The tongue could be seen as a double-edged sword if you're looking at it the right way. Like, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a word that's been popping up a lot here lately. You know, people have been using words, and that's great. I don't have any problem with it. But again, we got to be aware of what we saying and what it actually means. And so, one of the words that a lot of people have been throwing around here lately is receipts. Everybody want to see the receipts to something. Everybody, want to see the proof of what it is that you're talking about, where you coming from with it, and okay, fair enough. And please excuse my paintmanship on this. I'm a work in progress. But everybody want to see your receipts. So let's break this down. What is it exactly that we talking about? Or what are you requiring me to do when you asking me to bring the receipts? Now, out the top of the dome, we all know that means to make again or to apply in addition to. I could be wrong. You look that part up yourself. So let's take that part out of the way. And the word in question here is seeps. Seeps. And now I'm always a bit suspicious of words with silent letters or extra letters because if nothing else, you could be sure of one thing. Therein lies a spell, which is why you have to learn it. Have you ever actually looked up some of the words that you use? Well, let's look this one up and see what it says. Seats. Now we're gonna go straight to the Webster's dictionary. This is the Merriam, not the Webster like Spider-Man, which gives us another clue that maybe they're spinning us a web. But we'll come back to that and just look this up right here. Seeps. Do you see what it says? The word you've entered isn't in the dictionary. Click on a spelling suggestion below or try again using the search bar above. So when asking for receipts, what is it that you actually asking for? Now, to really get down to the nitty gritty, you'd have to study multiple languages and cultures and a lot of different disciplines to really understand the real meaning of words. Etymology, chronology. For the sake of simplicity, we only talking about the English language for now. And so this isn't even a modern English word. And I'll even take the S off for you so you can see that I'm not making this up. Still, again, the word isn't in the dictionary. And so the easiest way to figure out what these types of words mean is to spell it the way that it's said. Seats, as if to take a seat, to sit down. So when you asking someone for a receipt, are you asking them to sit back down because of what? You think the piece of paper that you asked them to be provided has any value or validity? Are you actually demanding someone to sit back down because they don't provide a piece of paper before you can give your stamp of approval? I mean, who do you really work for? The IRS? That's who it sounds like to me. The entities behind the IRS are the main ones that I know of that require receipts for everything. And knowingly or unknowingly, that's who you work for if you require receipts for everything. Well, and to just knock the charge right out of that spell, the Bible say it's stop it there. The Bible said, and okay, to be fair, I'm not meaning to insult anyone's intelligence. I am going to pretend as if I'm talking to a group of elementary school students. The word receipt is rooted in the word receive, meaning having proof that you acquired or obtained something or that something was given to you. The receipt is the proof that it was given and that you received it. But here's what's wrong with that. I'm going to give you a little example. And to knock the charge right out of that spell that we have here, the Most High said the law is going to be written on our heart. So it's no big mystery as to why everybody's requiring receipts all of a sudden. Why? Because that's not even actually on the menu. And so moving right along, we only having all of these problems because we talking about and we dealing with the English language. And the English language, that's a whole nother series all by itself. And so when dealing with something like the Bible, you can't even really comprehend the Bible through the lens of the English language. It wasn't written for that. The English language is a pidgin language, meaning it is made up of a bunch of different languages compiled together to make it easier for different people with different tongues to be able to communicate with each other. And so to really understand something like the Bible, to be totally honest with you, you'd have to learn different languages. You'd have to study Hebrew. Now, of course, they would say you have to study Greek and Latin, and most of that can be true and helpful. But to be totally honest with you, it was never even meant to be translated into Greek or Latin. So you'd have to start with Hebrew. And you might wonder, me thinking that I know so much, why do I speak so much with slang and broken English and just making up words or being wrong altogether? And that is because I realize that we are speaking in spells and it's meant to trap you in a spell. And there's actually certain ways you got to say the things that you say in order to release the charge of the spell. Now, I wouldn't say that it's an exact science or that I'm right or even know what I'm doing, but I would definitely say that I am making an attempt, and I do believe that our people always have, and deep down inside, each of us already know. Trying to be proper and correct and perfect about everything, we trapping ourselves inside the spell. Briefly, since we talking about the Bible, and guys, I know I'm not doing this any amount of justice in this few minutes that I'm gonna spend talking about this, but again, I'm explaining this to a group of elementary school students, which may or may not be you. It could be good or bad, but either way, these are just my thoughts and opinions on some of these subjects. I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but look at the word Bible versus the way it's spelled. It's said Bible, but we say Bible. Now, we, of course, could say Bible. We could call it that. Well, because in Spanish, how do you say biblioteca? So they pronounce it the way it's spelled, Bible, but we say Bible, which comes out more sounding like Babel, as in the Tower of Babel, or as in Babylon, as in like baby Babel. It's funny that baby is in the word Babylon. Babel is in the word Babylon, and Bible is in the word Babel, which to me is a clue that there is a spell right in that word. Let me give you another example of how we get trapped in the spell that's in these words. I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere or just feel it in my heart somewhere that devil worshippers wrote the Bible backwards and created their own Bible, and that's what they use today. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I haven't actually done the research to find out. But one thing I do know for sure is that most of the mainstream Christians called the worshipful Most High God. Now, strangely enough, if you read that word backward, then you have a whole nother word that we actually use, dog. Now, that, I mean, surely you've most likely heard that before, seen it before, but let's stop to expound on that a little bit. The Most High, holiest of holies, we call God, but then that same word backwards, you have the word dog, which is a domesticated animal. I wouldn't call it a lower animal, but I will say that they say that the dog is the man's best friend. Now that's an inversion if I ever seen one. Now, how is it that the most high creator of everything can be encompassed in this three-letter word? How dare us even try to contain the creator of everything in this small little three-letter word? The same word, when spelled backwards, we have an animal that we might kick and spit on, leave outside in the cold, feed our trash and the stuff that we don't want, or if we even feed them at all. How is that even possible without there being a spell contained in these words? And now, if they wrote the Bible backwards or not, honestly, guys, I don't know. But there is enough evidence to support that argument. especially if you study enough other languages and stuff. You get to the point where you don't realize if they're talking about backwards or the backwards of what is actually written in front of you. Our ancient ancestors had to have had a knowledge of written words that we have yet to come to even close to comprehending. See, they understood the numerical value of these words. They understood the grammatical value of each of these words. We think we know everything, but you see, they knew that each letter is a character, meaning a whole, like Bugs Bunny, a character. In my opinion, maybe these letters that they wrote at some point in time may have somehow had the power to jump up off the page and act autonomously. Now, we can't seem to fathom that. But when you couple that with the knowledge that, oh, our ancient ancestors never wrote anything down, we would equate that to them being stupid. But again, when you look deep enough, you'll see that they were far from stupid. See, in my opinion, our ancients didn't leave any written records in that way because they knew the power of the letters. They knew the power of the grammar. They knew the power of the characters that they were to be leaving behind. Their words had the power to manifest and materialize coming right out of their mouth, which is why they chose to not leave as many written records. So, what exactly is a letter? What is grammar, even? Let's start with, we know what means. So, let's break this apart. Is the one who makes something come about, the thing that makes something come about or something happen. So, in the case of grammar, what is gram? Now, of course, we all know a gram is a unit of measure, but let's see what Webster has to say. Any of several leguminous plants, such as a chickpea, grown especially for their seeds. Long pause. It's written right there. So the grammar were the seeds that you plant seeds to grow. So that's the first definition that pops. You see it right there. Well, I didn't know that. I knew a gram was a unit of measure. But you see it right here. It's a legume plant grown especially for its seed. So when we talking about grammar, we're talking about something that was facilitated as a seed. Full stop. So, what is a letter? Again, we know what an is. So, what is a let? And again, we most of us might actually know what that means. To cause, to make, to give opportunity to, or fail to prevent. So, this is something that's making something happen, or allowing something to happen, or failure to prevent something from happening, is what a let is. To let something out, or like to rent something out to someone. And we use letters to spell. So these are things that make things come about or fail to prevent things to come about. It's written right there. So when they did start back writing things down and keeping written records, they, in my opinion, started out with Sanskrit cuneiform up to hieroglyphics, which, in my opinion, was an attempt to breathe life back into these characters. Now, this is a powerful language. These are powerful things. It's encrypted. It's coded. It's a cult. I just don't like that word. But I think it can only be figured out by very few of us out here. I think the answers are in us, and it's going to take us to come together to make any of this make any amount of sense. You get me? But I think our ancestors left it this way in pieces like this. So one day we'll come along and figure it out and put the rest of the pieces together, knowing that it's such a powerful language. They don't have the right to possess this power. Only we do. This language has the power to, again, materialize and manifest right out of our mouth or right on the piece of paper that we put it on. They know this about us. That's why they're doing everything in their power to keep us apart. When you apply the law or reversal, that one's easy to figure out. It's not a big mystery why they trying to keep us apart. Full stop. And I left so much of this out, mostly because I had to, but also because I wanted to, and also to save time. But if it's the will of the Most High, I will come back and do a part two, or at least do a reprisal to touch on some of the things that I might have missed out. But for instance, this image on the screen to me is a good example of I'm not, yeah, I'm not even, yeah, you know where I'm going with this, guys. Come on. And let me give you another example of what I'm talking about, especially when we're dealing with things like different languages and stuff, and how we're trapped in spells, and how they use it against us, and it's totally intended to keep us, subpar. There are other, like, we know all the the historical languages, written languages that people, but there are many other languages that and a lot of us do know about, but we just don't think about it that way. Like, for instance, how could our ancestors have communicated certain things? Like, for instance, have any of you guys ever heard of merchant speak, or I don't know what you call it, merchant language, merchant talk? We might call it charades, but that is a whole real full language that our ancestors used effectively. Ponder that. We sign language. That is a whole real language that our ancestors knew and used effectively. And we still see people do it today. Deaf people, people make up their own language, pig Latin. You know, these are all realistic things that could be utilized to our advantage. That is outside the box of what they're trying to keep us trapped into. So think about that for a moment. And one more, just because this was my favorite, and I just couldn't leave it out. And I mean, I don't know, it's ridiculous at best, but there's a whole nother language that our ancestors use effectively. And we know of the indigenous American Indians using this more than anything. But there's a whole, I mean, well, we call it telepathy. And that has just so many negative connotations and whatever else. But think about it. Some of our ancestors communicated without ever even opening their mouth. Just think about that for a moment. And so we being trapped in by this, mostly because we allowing it to happen, but also because of lack of knowledge. Now we know that because that's what the books say, but we know that if we paying any kind of attention at all. So the real question is, what do we do about it? And this is the last thing. I'm gonna leave you with this. A question, or I don't know, an assertion. I mean, I don't even know why I even put this up here. What this even got to do with anything, I don't know. But look at what we have on the screen here: 7 continents and 5 oceans. Has any of you guys ever noticed that all of the continents' names start with A and end with A, except one? That one, Europe, it starts with an E and ends with an E. Isn't that strange? At least a little bit. What does that imply? What does that mean? See, therein lies a clue. As to what, I don't know. I mean, does it have any effect on us at all? Or is it just something that happened? Doesn't even matter. Does someone need to look into this a little bit more? Oh, you think I already know the answer? Well, maybe I do. Maybe I don't. If it's the will of the Most High, we stay around long enough, maybe we'll see. So I'll leave you with that. See you when I see you.